All right, let's get Facebook in here, rocking and rolling. Got the wheel spinning. We'll see if Facebook is friendly to us today. It wasn't not friendly last Monday, or was it Wednesday morning too? But Tuesday night, I don't even remember. We're still going all right. Well, they're there for now, and we're here right now. Happy Monday morning. It is time for an episode of Broncos for Breakfast. I am Nick Kendell, joined by Erick Trickel. Erick, happy Monday morning to you, and happy Combine Week, man. You were rocking and rolling with the articles out there. Make sure you guys are checking out Mile High Huddle for everything Erick got out there. How you feeling post Combine now that I wouldn't even say the dust is settling? It's still very much in the air. It's we're watching it fall. The volcano exploded, the ash is falling, but the Combine is closed once again in Indy.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, it's now, going through all the data. It's going through all the little nuggets of information that have come out from the combine. And with the nuggets of information, you don't have a long time to go through that because the legal tampering period starts next Monday. What a silly segment of NFL offseason that is, but that's a whole other topic. But no, it's just for me now. I mean, it was a long week. Almost 20-hour days there for the combine, going through it and watching it and, getting all the data, running through it for some of them. And, yeah, I mean, it's a big part of the evaluation. It's not, as big as it's made out to be, not for me anyways, but it does play a part in it. There were some grades that seem to be, moving up and down, and got to make all the adjustments for that. So it's a long week that turns into a long part of the process.
Yeah, and we had Sean Payton on the sideline there interviewing with, I don't remember if it was Ian Rappaport or whoever he was talking, Pete Schrader. Pete Schrader, saying that like the big part of the combine is not so much, the on-field drills or anything. It's the meetings and it's the medicals. And they'll say that a bunch of times. Now, it is cool to see some guys, have some historical combines, and maybe it, as far as how it sets up your board, maybe it sets a tiebreaker. Like before, maybe you liked, for example, Malachi Starks and Amanda Warrior the same. Now, granted, Starks did really good in the GPS on the drills, where Amanda Warrior did better in the testing. So how do you want to weight those? We'll see. I'm excited for like 10 years from now how the GPS data plays out when we start to get like normalized large enough sample, because it's still relatively new for it being available to us. But with all that said, maybe that, a tiebreaker on your board at the end of the day, the thin margins, where everything else, the tape, the character, the fit, the medicals, blah, blah, blah. Finally, it's like, okay, we like them the same. Tiebreaker, little guy who is slightly higher relative athletic score, whatever they're using in-house. Yeah. But yeah, I'm glad it's happened. It's fun, and a lot of new nuggets of information about the Denver Broncos going forward.
Yeah, I mean, in that same interview with Sean Payton and from Peter Schrager, he was asked about when was it at the combine where they fell in love with Bo Nix, and I'll have an article coming up on that hopefully today. And Sean Payton's like, no, they didn't think that Bo Nix had a great combine last year. They didn't fall in love with him then. They didn't settle on him then. It wasn't until they went through their own process as with the private workout for him that they came around and like, okay, this is the guy that we want. And it's just one of those things of the that the coach says that kind of grabs your attention a little bit. Not so much when they fell in love with him, but hey, we didn't think he had a good combine. And watching the combine last year, I was able to find some of my notes, and Bo Nix didn't have the greatest of combines. And it's just one of those things that sometimes you have to take with a grain of salt. With a lot of these players, with the quarterbacks, sometimes they're, I mean, one thing you get away is they may not be making throws that they made a ton in college. So you just got to look at the mechanics and stuff like that. See if you can, correct the placement issues. Wide receiver and the timing with the quarterbacks, maybe they're not always getting the ball or getting out of their breaks on time because that timing's off. Offensive linemen probably have it the worst. You have these big, powerful offensive linemen who are very scheme specific, and all the drills at the combine are movement drills. So they look terrible. Tyler Booker, for an example, this year, he's not the best mover out there, but he's a big, powerful guard that is just going to, take everybody's lunch. And, from his quote, probably one of the best quotes of the combine this year is he wants to take away the love of football from his opponents. And you see that on tape, but it doesn't transition to the combine. So it's just, again, it's part of the process. Hearing Sean Payton talk about how he didn't have Bo Nix didn't have a great combine. It just goes to show, just don't overreact to the combine performances. I know it can be really hard, especially when you see a guy 220 pounds, 6'5", whatever, run a sub 4.4, a 4.3 in the case of Matthew or of Deontay Johnson out of Tennessee, 6'5", 205 pounds. It's hard not to overreact, but you just got to, keep everything a little bit more measured for it. It's a long process. Combine is just part of it.
And some of that too, you mentioned the Tennessee wide receiver, guys who like, okay, well, we're talking day 3 now. Maybe that does make a difference for your day 3 where it's like the odds of hitting anyway aren't very good. Well, maybe it was just a coaching issue or a scheme. I mean, talk about weird scheme. Tennessee is terrible to watch out there. Art Briles, what did you do to this game? I love the air raid stuff. But we got Michael Ronquillo coming in. Good morning, Nick and Eric on Broncos for breakfast. Go Bo Broncos. Go Michael. If you guys want to be like Michael, with the monetary support in here, keep Eric waking up at 4 a.m. without coffee. I can't even imagine. But thank you so much, Michael, for the support coming in here. And, it's new transition without Scott here. So we want to keep Eric's face bright and excited to be in here too, all bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. We got David Youngkin coming in here as well. He says, morning, ladies and gentlemen, a Mile High Huddle. Have a great show. Caleb with the apostrophe in there says, good morning, Broncos country. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Shiloh can't hang out with us this morning, but he still comes in and says hello, says, gotta miss the show live, but good morning. That means he's going to circle back around. And on that note, you guys can't join us live. Obviously, if you are joining us live, click the thumbs up, subscribe, like, share, all that helps us a lot. But we're also on iTunes, Spotify, blah, 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 wherever. So appreciate that. We got Jeremy Sean, our guy, says, morning, guys. Lots of new information to overreact to. Exactly. Excited to mock. Yeah, we're going to get into the mock here pretty soon, Jeremy. So we want to give ourselves some time. Colorado says, morning. Hope you all are doing great. Well, I'm getting over this cold still. So I'm hopefully doing a good job of muting before I cough. I don't want to bust anybody's eardrums with that or getting off camera when I blow my nose. But we're doing okay, man. That's just daycare. Gatorade Gaming says, good morning. What's good, Broncos country? We're hanging out. Jason, morning, everybody. He's got his top 3 choices here. He says, all defensive side of the ball. See, Jason, I like the options here and the contrarianism because it's boring when it's the same thing every time. We're still over 50 days away. Let's have some different opinions here. Walter Nolan, Jason, I'm to help you here as much as this is helping me. Nolan is Nolen. I get it wrong every freaking time. So Nolan, defensive tackle, Ole Miss. Kenneth Grant, defensive tackle from Michigan, and Nick Emanawari, safety from South Carolina. All viable options for the Broncos at pick 20 if you're not going for an offensive playmaker. I think right now it is tilted towards a tight end or running back, or at this point, Eric, I think like Ted McMillan is maybe in the sphere for Denver at pick 20. I know they keep saying not taking wide receiver, but if Genty and the 2 top tight ends are gone and you're not trading back, I think Ted's got to be part of the conversation right now, but we'll see. Mr. Roush, great to see you. Sin G, BFB in the house, Greg Smith. Cly, here's one for you, Eric. I was upset at first, Cly. Every time I see this, I'm like, why do we have a Kansas City logo in here? It's the crying Jordan behind it. Davante Adams for a 6th round selection. What do you think here, Eric?
I remember a few weeks ago, I did a article about, everybody's talking about Garrett Wilson. Well, what about Davante Adams? Mm-hmm. And it came out on a night where Nick and Chad were on the podcast, and I happened to tune in and watch it. And let's just say they weren't the happiest over that. And I get it. I wouldn't exactly be stoked for it, but for a 6th round pick, I'd take a shot on it. You obviously have to rework that contract. His contract is made for either a new contract or to be released this year. It's not made to be kept by the team that whoever has him. So you have to rework it. I think he's very talented. I think, what he brings to it would work extremely well with what the Broncos have. My biggest issue for him is that he's kind of taken on this, prima donna type, persona, so to speak, with, creating some issues to get out of Green Bay, creating some issues to get out of, Las Vegas. But you have to wonder how much of that was also the situation. He didn't like the situation that the Packers were going in, and he turned out to look a little foolish for that. Didn't like the direction that the Raiders were taking. We'll see if he looks foolish for that. So it's something that gives you worry, but for a 6th round pick, and depending on what you do with the contract, I wouldn't be too upset if the Broncos went that way.
Yeah, I think that's fine. You have 3 6th round picks. I don't think the 6th round picks are super valuable this season. I'm fully expecting the Broncos to trade one of their 6th-round picks or some sort of package of picks after their 4th rounder. We'll see how they move up, down, around to do what they did last year with John Franklin Myers, moving a pick for a veteran contract and absorbing some of that value. That's what teams that have a lot of those picks in a situation like the Broncos are at right now can do. So he's definitely somebody I'm interested in. I think maybe I'm too obsessed with the little things here, Eric. That's what she said. But you had Adams, you have Sutton, you have Mims, you have Tez. We need some dirty work wide receivers at some point. Somebody who can fill the F and do the Z slot stuff with some blocking, especially if you're going to run the screen as much as Denver does. And Adams is not that guy at this point. But speaking of a dirty work guy, I'm going to stick my flag in here, Eric. One of my guys in the entire draft, Jack Besh. I just love Jack Besh. He says he'd love him round 2. I mocked him round 2 in my mock last week. So check that out. I think he'd be a perfect fit. Talk about your Z slot. F, typically a tight end. Now it's becoming, thanks to Sean McVay, becoming more so wide receivers out there too. And Scatterbo or Terrence Ferguson round 3. I would be very excited about this. It depends. I think with those selections, Bruce, I'm hoping that you got a defensive player with your first pick. I would understand. I just don't really love the pure fantasy football, wide receiver, tight end, running back with the first 3 picks, other than Eric's mock. That was beautiful. That was released today. No, I think that'd be great. But I just wanted to give a shout out to Jack Besh, who him and Ayo Manor are probably my favorite day 2 receivers in this class because they compete every snap just as hard if the ball's not going to them as if it does.
Now, I just got to ask, are you predicting the future a little bit? Because you said that the Broncos have Tez.
I said Tez. Oh, well.
You said Tez.
6th rounder, maybe. I don't know. You talk about the dirty work players, right? We need some physicality at the wide receiver. Yeah.
I mean, obviously you meant Troy Franklin, but you mentioned the John Franklin Myers trade. Well, that was with the Jets, but what's more so when you're talking about Davante Adams specifically, who's now in charge of the Jets? Who's that general manager of the Jets? Mm-hmm. It's George Payton's good friend, buddy, his right-hand man here in Denver.
Moog.
The Moog. And as for, getting that nastiness, Besh, Aomanor, those are 2 of the guys up there. And then there's another dude who I think is probably a day 3 guy who is, probably in part of that, not quite that same tier of physicality as them, but right behind those 2. And I just can't remember his name now. He's a guy that I'm pretty sure I wrote about him having a really good combine in my wide receivers, winners and losers. But his name is escaping me at the moment. And he's a guy that, if you get there round 4, I'd be considering him.
Okay, well, I'm curious who it is, Eric. My late round sleeper for that big slot type is Brew McCoy. A little older, but he blocks his freaking butt off. You see any screens from Tennessee, and he's probably leading the blocking charge on the perimeter. Denver Luke, 199, says Terrence Ferguson tested very well. He's a sleeper. He's far from a sleeper, and I feel a little vindicated because he was consistently not part of the top 6 tight ends when a lot of people entering the combine were like that. I'm like, I think if you're throwing in Harold Fannin Jr. and Gunnar Helm, you have to throw in Terrence Ferguson as well. And the way he tested, I mean, you have to be interested. So thank you so much for the super chat. 199, every bit helps, and even more. Quentin Caldwell coming in, $5. Gimme. Thank you so much for the support here, Quentin. Hope you're doing well. Happy Monday. He says, good morning, everybody. Nick Amanawari, man, such an amazing talent. Yeah, he is. He's pretty freaking unique. He moves really well. I think if you're playing, more of your 2 deep safety stuff, but he's athletic enough, long enough. I don't think you want to declare him as the free safety pre-snap, but if you're, hiding the whoever the free safety is and who's dropping down in that robber role, he can do that. Is he going to cover a wide receiver in slot, as well as Jahdae Barron, another one of your kind of safety wide receiver or safety cornerback types? Probably not, but so good in the box. Yeah, he's definitely part of the options there for the Broncos if he's even on the board when they're picking at pick 20.
Yeah, and I mean, when you see somebody move that like he did with that athletic testing, it just speaks to the explosive drills. There's only one safety in history who has jumped better than him in both jumps. There have been a couple that have done one and, jump better in the vertical or the broad, but only one. Obi Melifonwu is that guy. And I think that we have seen enough, and this is something that you and we've talked about. We've gone back and forth with Amanawari privately and on shows to an extent. But I think you have two guys in the NFL who he may not be the same as, but you can definitely look at the way that they're used and that same kind of archetype, and that's what you can get out of Eman and Derwin James and Kyle Hamilton. Obviously, not exactly the same. He's not a guy that you're going to drop in the slot as often as the Chargers have done with Derwin James, especially this last season. That's what really helped their defense take that next step going forward. And so you definitely have ways to use him. My question is, when it comes to the Broncos specifically, is he a guy that they're wanting to pair with Brandon Jones? They're not similar in size and athleticism but with how you want to use them, their ideal usage, there's some crossover there that may create some issues in the way the NFL is going nowadays.
Yeah, but it never hurts if you think he's going to be a chance to be a superstar. You love the character, the build. I always not novel here, but you stack your board based on the positions of value, but there is no position of value when it comes to a superstar. And right now, when you look at the team build of the Broncos, yes, their defense was very good last year, but how many back seven, like Pro Bowl caliber players do you have right now? It's one. I think Jones is a good player. We'll see about Moss, but your linebackers are completely turning over that room. PJ Locke, I mean, obviously at this point, the Broncos are very much interested in upgrading upon him. So that's an area where the Broncos are at in terms of their team build. If you think a guy can be a superstar safety, then you at least look at it. Andrew Lampy says, good morning, gentlemen. Hope everyone has a wonderful Monday. Thank you for the positive vibes here, Andrew. It's Monday. Everybody sometimes feels a little bit like an underdog on Monday mornings, right? But coffee helps, as does today's presenting sponsor.
Yeah, so speaking of underdogs, this basketball season, when your favorite star scores a bucket, we're going to give you an alley-oop opportunity to win money from watching sports with Underdog. Underdog is one of the leading sports apps, and you can play now in your state. Do you want to win up to 1,000 times your money? Well, guess what? You can with Underdog.
To play, choose whether a player will go higher or lower on one of their stats, such as points, assists, rebounds, and more. Underdog's got all your favorite leagues, teams, and stars to choose from. Create entries with all basketball picks or mix and match across other sports. You can play with as little as $1, and if you get everything right, you can win up to 1,000 times your money. So turn $1 into 1,000 just with your hoops knowledge.
So download the Underdog app and sign up now using promo code MHuddle to unlock a special offer of up to $1,000 in bonus cash when you make your first deposit. Join in on the fun when you sign up with promo code MHuddle. Claim your special offer today and get up to $1,000 in bonus cash instantly upon your first deposit.
Must be 18 plus, 19 plus Alabama, Nebraska, 19 plus in Colorado. For some games, 21 plus in Massachusetts and Arizona, and a present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Void in Colorado. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit ncpgambling.org. Arizona, 1-800-NEXT-STEP or text NEXT STEP to 53342. New York, call a 24/7 HOPE line at 1-8778-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. So moving forward here, we appreciate everyone coming in here with the super chats, the comments, the thumbs up on the way in. Underdog brought to you by Manscaped as well. Yeah, all the good stuff here. Appreciate Todd. Todd Ostendorf's in here. Good to see you, Todd. Ernie Mays. Go Ernie Mays only. Micah, our guy. Always appreciate Micah. One of the good ones in here. Money Moore is in the house too. Great to see you. And much upon Jeremy's request here, because, we're doing the show for Jeremy. This is Broncos for Jeremy for breakfast. But no, we're going to get into our mock draft simulator a little bit earlier today. So let me pull it up here. How many places do I have to click before it's up? There we go. One more time, Nick. There we go. Okay, so there it is. We're on the board here. 7 rounders. It's too much work. At some point, Eric will just kick it off right away and maybe do some trades and stuff. But we're using the PFF one today because that's the one that Eric says he prefers because PFF pays him to be a positive opinion.
I used to.
Yeah, I am for sale, PFF, by the way. So I do not have any morality here. I'll talk about agents out there. You give me your player, we'll do it. But no, we'll get it going here. Broncos with the 20th pick. Before we even get going, though, Eric, because I did say 7:05, so we got a couple seconds here. Broncos sitting there at 20. Where are your vibes right now coming out of the combine? Contacts in Indy, everybody drinking and staying out till 4 a.m. How they do it, I don't know. When I was there, I was exhausted. But I felt like I was always one of the first ones in the media room too, getting my stories ready for the day. Too professional. But trading up, trading down. Denver at 20. No trades in this simulator, but are you picking up any vibes right now for the Broncos' potential directions?
I mean, I think we all know the way that they're going and the vibes that they're giving out is tight end or running back. with what George Payton said during his podium session last Tuesday about having, a lot of guys ranked similarly between 10 and 20, that doesn't give me, the sense that they're wanting to trade up, because if they're similarly graded, why do you want to add more investment value into them with the cost of trading up, and just, let the board fall to you a little bit. Now, if, things change and you have guys who are just outside of that fall a little bit, or like there's a significant enough grade, say they're getting to pick 18 and the only guys left of their top 20 is like number 11 and then number 18 and 19. Maybe that is a situation where you do, but it's not going to be, I don't think it's going to be a thing where, oh, we're getting on the clock, it's pick 11 or 12 and the Broncos are trading up. I don't think we're going to get that. I think that we're more likely to see a trade down than a trade up in the first round. After that, I think we'll see a trade, a typical Sean Payton trade up that we've seen the last 2 years on day 2. But yeah, I'm just not getting sense of trading up. I think it's tight end or running back is the desire. After that, I think we can get to some defensive possibilities.
Yeah, I want to ask you, though, as far as the tight end or running back, is it running backs option plural at 20, or is it singular running back? Because when you mentioned, for me right now where I sit, there's 2 tight ends and 1 running back that I'd be happy with at pick 20. After that, if you're talking, I don't even know what tight ends you're talking about after that. I know Mason Taylor had a very good combine, and a lot of people are excited about him in his youth. 20 feels a little rich for Mason Taylor. He might sneak into the first round. I don't know. We'll see. But 20 feels about 10 spots too early for me there. And then you have Omari and Hampton, Travion Henderson, who, if they went before the Broncos picked at 20, I'd be a little surprised, but not like what the heck's going on. But are those guys in play, or is it kind of a Ashton Jeanty or bust? Because when you're talking about 3 guys, your pool's pretty limited all the way down at 20.
It's hard to say, not being in that room, not entirely sure.
Yeah.
I could see Hampton being in play, depending if the other 3, those 2 tight ends and Jeanty are all gone. I could see Hampton in play. I think that would probably be a situation where they might want to look at trading down a little bit more, just a few spots. I don't think Henderson will be in play. I don't think Mason Taylor would be in play. I think Mason Taylor would be more in play with the trade down. One thing that is worth mentioning when it comes to Mason Taylor is Daniel Jeremiah during the combine when they were working out. He kept saying one thing about Mason Taylor is that he's probably the safest pick of these tight ends, because you're at least getting a reliable blocker and a reliable receiver. You're at least getting that number 2 guy in Mason Taylor. And he's still young. He's not going to be 21 until May. So there's still plenty of ceiling to go. And so when you get talking about a guy like that who's young, good chance he's going to go higher than many are expecting. Whether that's top 30, I'm not so sure. But top 40, 31 to 40, I can see him going somewhere in that range with how this is. Maybe it's Denver after a trade back. But at 20 specifically, I think that we're looking at a tight end and a running back.
For sure. And I will say, reports coming out, I wish I could credit who reported it, but there's a good number of teams that have Hampton rated higher than Jeanty. Hampton's bigger frame, tested extremely well now. How important is that for running back? I think there's point of diminishing returns. It's not a position like, defensive line where it correlates as much to on the field success. But yeah, Hampton, there's a chance that he goes before Jeanty out there, right? There's some teams that really like him. So we'll see. And let's get this mock rocking and rolling here.
Well,
go ahead.
Real quick with Hampton and Jeanty. One or 2 big reasons for that: less miles on Hampton than there is Jeanty. And one thing that I've heard consistently mentioned, the difference in fumble rate.
The difference in what?
Fumble rate. How often they're fumbling, how often they're putting the ball on the ground.
Okay, well, we'll see what happens here. I guess our takeaway would be, don't be too shocked if Hampton goes before Jeanty or follows not long after. And again, the combine, Lance Zierlein, who I respect, does great work, said he thinks both tight ends are coming off the board before pick 14. Some people are thinking Omari and Hampton and Jeanty are coming off the board before pick 16. If that's the case, there's going to be somebody available there for the Broncos at 20, or maybe you trade back, which is my dream. Maybe they end up going defensive line because the weapons they want are all gone. Maybe they end up going wide receiver. I know that Golden, you want to talk about somebody who made themselves some money this last week. Golden ran that 4.340, and again, credit to Zerline. He was talking about it. The people in Sark and their player development staff, their jaw hit the ground. They didn't think Golden had that in him. Pretty exceptional combine 40 there for Golden, who might end up being the first wide receiver off the board. We'll see. But let's run it here. We got it going here. Broncos are going to be on the clock here. Oh my gosh, the randomness is very high. Did you see who the second pick was there? Jahdae Barron to the Browns. That's not happening. But hey, it's not really about who slotted who before us. It's who's on the board when the Broncos are picking. So here we are. We got our defensive line options here. Walter Nolan, Ole Miss, available. Emeka Egbuka, wide receiver, Ohio State. We got Derek Harmon, defensive line from Oregon, who had a pretty good combine overall. I feel like he's just the big body, the versatility, the movement skills. For his size, he actually can anchor pretty well. If you want to run the twist and stunt game, I mean, he's just going to be a useful player. Mykel Williams, Shamar Stewart, very tempting for me here. Membu, I don't think that's in play for Denver. If they needed a guard or a tackle, I'd be in. Hampton's here. Jalen Walker is interesting. Didn't have the best combine, but I mean, the tape's great still. There's Gray Zabel, who had an awesome combine. Darius Alexander is getting first-round love now. Pretty high for Demetrius Light. There's Colston Loveland way down here. Eric, for the PFF simulator, we'll see if he's there in real life. There's Besh down there as well. Trey Amos. Landon Jackson had a heck of a combine. Right now, just looking at this board, this might be a hot take here, Eric. I think your best value is this 2 edge rushers. I don't think that's the way the Denver is going to end up going. We can go Colston Loveland just for the sake of that's what we're hearing coming out of the combine. But right now, Denver is pretty darn small at edge. I think you've mentioned that they want to get a little bit better with their 4-man rush rather than being so constant with 5 in our private conversations. And some of that is having some early down rotation with Nick Benito. I think some of that is also maybe getting Jonathan Cooper, who's a serviceable, good player, but not a superstar, strong side edge player. I'm really interested in the edge rushers in Mykel Williams and Shamar Stewart. And I don't think Denver's going this way in real life, but man, you look back, 5 years from now, and then one of these guys ends up a Pro Bowl caliber player, you're going to be shooting yourself. Maybe not. Maybe that's extreme. Smacking yourself for there. But so I just wanted to give a shout out for the edge spot because I don't think there is there's no such thing as having too much pass rushers, and these guys bring something completely different than what Denver has right now.
Yeah, you mentioned edge rushers, and when it was going through, I think it was pick 10, and have to crack smile, highly rated pass rusher, James Pierce Jr. out of Tennessee, but there is a lot coming out that he may not hear his name called until day 3 because he has the worst character report out of every prospect in this class.
Wow.
A lot of people are talking about it. People are saying that, once he was away from the team in Tennessee, that everything got better. Everything got more cheerful. There just seemed to be more life. But I mentioned that because you talked about those edge rushers. Well, I think one of those 2 edge rushers, if Chicago is that way, it's one of those 2 guys.
Yeah.
But, as you're saying, it's how do we want to do this? Do we want to stick to our view on these players? Do you want to go with what Denver's doing? Because going off of my board, it's Mykel Williams. And I mean, he's a top 10 player for me. Shamar Stewart's not too far behind that. And he actually may end up a top 10 player for me. I haven't ran his, testing stuff to see how much that's changed for him. So if we want to go with our best player, it's one of those 2 guys. If we want to go for a best player at a position of need, then it's Walter Nolan. Derek Harmon, I think, is right behind Walter Nolan right now for me. So, I mean, if you wanted to go just slightly different, somebody who I think offers just a little bit more as a run defender than Nolan does, then Derek Harmon's the guy. A lot of ways we can go. And Nick, I'm going to leave it up to you. You can decide which way we want to go. Do we go with Colston Loveland, the guy that I think that the Broncos are targeting the most at 20? Do we go with my highest graded player at all positions or highest graded player at a position of need?
Well, I think we are going to, for this sake, at some point we can kind of get funky with it. I just wanted to give a shout out to him, are the 2 players in Shamar Stewart and Mykel Williams because of just how unique the players are. And again, they offer something completely different than what the Broncos have right now on the unit. And when you look long enough, I mean, Nick Benito coming out of the contract here. I know they drafted Ellis, but Ellis is playing the Benito role more than he is Jonathan Cooper. You do have Tillman, who's very good, but I think you figure out how to keep 5. So again, I really think that I would be very tempted by those edge rushers. I see we have a trade offer from the Vikings as well. Move back to 24 and let's see who's still there. I'm very much about that as well, considering where the board is at. But we're not doing that this time. I say we go with what is the most likely here, and that is Colston Loveland for the Broncos. And I will say, watching Loveland on tape at Michigan, I thought for sure, Eric, he was going to come in 6'4.5", 242, 245 pounds. And he comes in and measures almost 6'6", 250, almost 33-inch arm length, 10-inch hands. Now, that said, he had the benefit of coming in not testing. So where is that weight at, considering the threshold for a tight end is very small for the weight? So would he have been different if he was testing? Impossible to say, because we knew he wasn't. And also, I'm coming out of the combine higher on Loveland because he played this last season with an injury for a season that went way off the rails for Michigan as well. So character stuff, the size was better than I had hoped. And also he's extremely young, and bringing it full circle, we had, I think it was Payton mentioned multiple times that they're much more interested in a tight end who's already got that receiving ability that learns how to improve as a blocker, as opposed to the guy who's already a set and forget blocker. So that screams Colston Loveland.
It's easier, is the way that George Payton mentioned it, to teach a receiving tight end to block than it is to teach a blocking receiver to catch. And I'm with you. Talking about it, I on the record of saying Arroyo could have taken over at tight end 2. I came out higher on Loveland out of the combine. There's been so much praise going about him. The medicals, even though he's going to miss the draft process, he's not going to work out of the pro day. He's not working out of the combine because of that shoulder injury. But the medicals for it, they're clean. They're not worried about long-term, damage to it. Well, there might be some concern with Arroyo there. But one thing too is I went back and watched him a little bit just because, he's a guy that I seem to have a difference on. He's still not a guy who, I wouldn't hate it at pick 20, but he's not a guy that for me is a top 20 player. But watching his blocking, I think that with what George Payton was saying, there is already a lot to work with him. One thing that you want to watch for tight end blocking is thumb placement. You want those thumbs pointing up. So you want them to latch on to the outside, basically right outside the nipples, and thumb on them. And
don't tempt me with a good time.
And then you twist. Like a lot of people will say that it's holding. It's not. It's basic blocking. You get on there, you latch on, and then you put your thumbs up. So you're kind of holding them just like this, and you're keeping your thumbs up. We see a lot of these tight ends. Gunnar Helm is one, for example, and this is one of his really bad habits. He gets that, and then he readjusts his back and puts thumbs down, and this leads to loss of control of your blockers. So Loveland, I think you see enough tools to work and to develop as a blocker to have confidence that he can develop as a blocker.
Yeah, absolutely. You got Michael Williams falling all the way to 36. Crazy. I think more likely a top 10 pick than that on this mock draft simulator. So we're here with the Broncos. We took out our tight end already. I think that kind of takes care of your Loveland's enough of a hybrid that I think he can play your F and you have a quasi 11-12 personnel. So even though they're already gone, Besh and A.O. Manor probably not on the board here for the Broncos. If they had landed, man, we got a lot of nip talk going on here. What's going on? It is cold down here. So now we're on the pick at pick 52 here. The areas the Broncos are looking probably are running back and defensive line. The toss linebacker out there as well. Maybe a linebacker or safety, depending on how the board falls. But there's a pretty good number of linebackers and safeties, running backs, and defensive line here. So let's get those two positions specifically. I think we're going to pick from those pools right now. So Shamar Turner, I mean, he's another guy who played with an injury all season. And the character reports, I don't know how much you've heard about this, Eric, but it sounds like people would die for Shamar Turner as far as how much he loves football and coaches love him. He's somebody that had a really good year in 2023, played injured this season, but good guy. Alfred Collins. And the Broncos are looking to go to more two-gapping stuff. I think he's interesting. I wish he tested better. I know he's got great length and size, but the explosiveness was quite poor. All the same, the jumps and everything. So he kind of concerns me. Scattaboo, I feel like it's a little early for Scattaboo, in my opinion, more of a third-round pick, but that's the board. You got both Ohio State guys still available, Henderson and Judkins, who Judkins tested awesome. If you're looking for more of, everybody's wants the Joker. We got a Joker. Do we want more of a Mark Ingram now, or do we want to double up on Jokers? Both options for sure. Omar Norman Lott, one of the twitchier guys. I know you are a big fan of Dylan Sampson. Check out Erick's mock, everybody. Farmer had an awesome combine. I think it kind of falls off there. Giddens had a good combine. I'll tell you, Erick, I know that there's some Deion Walker renaissance going on right now. Third round, you can talk me into it. This is way too high. I think he's more of a fourth rounder. I don't think he can play 0-1 technique for his ability right now. So he scares me. So I'm fine with either of the Ohio State backs or Omar Norman Lott right now. Or, I mean, again, another hammer guy, Caleb Johnson, interests me as well. But out of those ones, who are you thinking? You got Carson Schwessinger coming off the board right before the Broncos pick. If he was available, I think I'd be talking much more about him as well for the Broncos. But alas, one pick before, a little bit bummer. Came in as the heaviest linebacker and jumped like he did. Hello, how you doing? I'm in. But your thoughts here. Broncos pick 52, excuse me.
So Broncos last year were very much in on T'Vondre Sweat. Very much. They wanted him. He didn't fall far enough. They were eyeballing trades to move up to go get him. It's been well reported that they're looking at a guy like Poona Ford in free agency. Benjamin Albright has talked about it a lot. I know he's a guy that you and I have both, mentioned at least in passing. So Alfred Collins stands out to me. He didn't run the 40, but when you're looking at defensive linemen who are at least 320 pounds, his explosives aren't bad when you're looking at guys that size. And he has so much length. Now he's 6'5", 332 pounds, 35-inch arms, but what stands out more, 85-inch wingspan. He can eat up so much space in the middle. And that seems to be something that the Broncos are looking for. There is a lot of similarity there to T'Vondre Sweat, who actually from, NFL Next Gen Stats Combine IQ, their new thing that they're doing this year. Alfred Collins turned out to be a decent enough athlete, but you mentioned it. If they want to go to more two-gapping, I think that it's very clear that they're wanting to. They just didn't, and they wanted to this last year, especially at, inside the middle. They wanted nose gap with that, or two gap with that nose tackle, one gap penetrating outside of that. And they just haven't had the pieces for it. So Alfred Collins at this point is very interesting to me for them, because 85-inch wingspan, it would be so hard to get by him inside that. Long arms, just eats up space, and hard to move. He's a guy that he can just sit there two gap and you're not moving him. It's opening up stuff for the linebackers. It's going to help out the edges. It's going to help out Zach Allen and John Franklin Myers when it comes to run defense. Is he a pass rusher? Not really, but he's a guy who can push the pocket a little bit, keep quarterbacks from stepping up. He's not going to be a guy who's going to go get you 4+ sacks every single season, but he might get you a couple. But you're looking at him for run defense, which is something that George Payton has made pretty clear. And Sean Payton's made it clear too, that they're eyeballing run defense.
Yeah. I just have a hard time getting behind. I see you mentioned Sweat. Sweat had much better fluidity and pass rush chops coming out of Texas than I see from Alfred Collins. And Sweat was one of the best pass rushing defensive tackles and the rookie defensive tackles in football this season. I do not see that with Alfred Collins. I think his skill set I love round 3, but I think this early, I just have a hard time. I want a little bit more pass rushing upside this high still, especially in this class, from my opinion, at least. So I'd be more interested in Omar Norman Lott, but a lot's going to depend on where the Broncos are. They going to extend John Franklin Myers and the likes of, Zach Allen as well. And then you just need a rotational guy that maybe Deion Walker then makes sense in the 3rd round as your like totally different body type, 4-eye ability. So I like Collins a lot. 51 feels a little rich for me for the complete lack of pass rush profile. But if they are switching to much more gap and a half, two gapping, I do get it. So wide receivers here, I can't imagine the Broncos going wide receiver after getting Colston Loveland, who's kind of blurs the line there. You got Xavier Restrepo, Jalen Nolan, so you're talking about your slots out here. Savion Williams, Jalen Royals, interesting too. Tez Johnson, Trey Harris, some options. I just don't see that as the play here for the Broncos. So I'm going to be honest, Erick. For the guys, for me, if you had to pick one of the running backs here for the Broncos, because I think that's a little bit more interesting Judkins, Sampson, Johnson, Henderson. Who stands out for you?
Well, I didn't want to touch on running backs because I don't want to make it exactly like my mock draft that released today.
You would take Sampson over both Ohio State guys?
Based off of some stuff coming out of the combine, definitely Judkins. Henderson, I think I would go Henderson over Sampson. When I did my mock draft, I used a simulator for all the picks. Henderson wasn't there. Mm-hmm. So I'd probably go Henderson over Sampson, but I really love Sampson.
Yeah, Sampson's great, and he's still available here with the third pick. Well, that's a little bit of a bummer. But you want to talk about defensive tackle? You got Phillips, somebody the Broncos met with, Marcus Mbow. That's who I'm going to bound the table for here right now. Eric Savion Williams. That's everyone. Check Eric's mock out. Jeffrey Bossa, linebacker. You got Harold Fannin Jr. still available. DJ Giddens had a good combine. There's your Deion Walker. We haven't gone defensive line yet, so I'd be happy here with. If Walker's background as far as like work ethic and love of football and everything checks out, he's a unique enough player, body type, that I'm okay taking a shot on a unicorn. His tape in 2023, much better than 2024. Does he live in the weight room? I mean, that's my big question here. But weight room versus cafeteria, where are you at, Walker? But after that, I think Mbow is really interesting. And the fact that the Broncos used a visit on him speaks volumes to me. You want to keep the defensive line, offensive line strong. You got to keep investing in them. Jacob Parrish, really interesting player. Makuba, I really like Makuba as well. You still got there's Gunnar Helm available. Caldwell, we still got a defensive tackles or zero techniques and everything available as well. So yeah, I think for me, it would be between Mbow. Phillips is interesting. Again, I think it's a little early for me. So Mbow or Walker, where would you lean here?
I would go Marcus Bow. The M is silent.
Okay. Well, now
Marcus Bow. Simple thing is the expectation is he's going to move inside. He's going to be a center. That is the expectation for him. Although it is interesting that Daniel Jeremiah and Charles Davis, when they were covering the offensive lineman yesterday, they both mentioned how there are still teams out there who do view him as a right tackle in the NFL. A certain scheme, they kind of highlight that if you're going to be running outside stuff, then you're probably going to view him as a tackle. But the Broncos, they need somebody to, be that snapper to Bo Nix long term. They don't have that. Luke Wattenberg, I think, is a serviceable player, but if you can upgrade him, you want to upgrade him. Alex Forsyth, when he started, he looked serviceable as well. But another guy who you want to upgrade, if you can. Doesn't mean you're giving up on Alex Forsyth. You can still let him compete with Marcus Bow and see who wins. But you want to find somebody who can, and with that rookie contract, you're getting those 4 years to, develop with and snap to Bo Nix and potentially be that duo for long term. So Marcus Bow, I think, here was the pick.
I like him a lot. And the fact that the Broncos used a visit on him, considering their team solidified on the offensive line, speaks volumes to me. I think that he's in play. Honest to God, I think he's in play at 51. I think the simulator has Broncos picking 52. I think those two picks are flipped, that they don't have him right in the simulator. But anyway, I like this Bow down. Maybe you should have put an M in front of down there as well, Jeremy, just for the complete alliteration. But appreciate it. And we are on the clock again here with the Broncos. We got a couple quarterbacks here, probably a little early for quarterback. JJ, interesting
Peg
player.
Hughes.
Excuse me?
Peg Hughes.
Yep. I like Noel Williams as well. He's interesting. Savion Jones is interesting. Jack Kaiser tested really well. And I also know, Eric, we already took we took Trayvon Henderson, but this is a good enough running back class. I think Damian Martinez is in play here. We have not seen enough from Estime. The fact that Martinez's hands grew crazy from the Senior Bowl as well. I'm really interested in doubling up on running back here with the Broncos and taking a Damian Martinez as well. I wouldn't have any issue with them. Brashard Smith, we already got our guy in that spot. Olu Ola or Femi Ola, whatever he wants to go by. He's interesting here. I don't know if he'll still be available. I like Hunter a lot. Billy Bowman is interesting. But just like looking at the board here, I don't know. I think that Damian Martinez is a heck of a back, and we'd be pretty set with him and Travion Henderson.
Yeah, I mean, JJ Pegues, he's a guy, defensive lineman, not really a two-gapper type, but he fits with what they've done. On top of that, he's extremely interesting. He was a Wildcat quarterback. He had 21 rushing attempts in his career, with 7 of them being touchdowns. He has 8 catches because he was used as a tight end. 7 of those catches were from Bo Nix, by the way, when they were both at Auburn. So he's very interesting. I think that there's a lot to work to do with him as a tight end, or as a defensive lineman, excuse me. But with what we're seeing happening with some guys, Patrick Ricard, Scott Matlock, he's a guy who you can use as a fullback. You can use as a tight end. You can use him creative ways on offense because he's a good athlete. Another name you mentioned or didn't mention, if you want to scroll down just a little bit, just a little bit more, it's a wide receiver, and it's the guy that I was thinking of earlier. Pat Bryant, wide receiver, Illinois. One thing that was absolutely praised about him, I haven't done a whole lot of work on him, but when the wide receivers are going through the drills, Daniel Jeremiah, he was getting up to run his 40, and Daniel Jeremiah just came out and said he's nasty. He's nasty as a blocker. He's nasty as a receiver, and just couldn't get off that aspect of him, and that he's probably, up there amongst the blocking wide receivers in this class. We can continue going for it. I saw somebody mention Jadon Blue. He's already off the board. He went a couple picks before it. But he is not an option for me. I know you and I are going to differ on here. He ran well. He tested well. But this dude had put the ball on the ground once every 30 touches. I know that you mentioned injuries this last season. But in his sparing role in 2023, his fumble rate was worse. He was fumbling almost once every 25 touches that he got. So he showed improvement while hurt, and it's just not something I'm willing to take on. But and then if you want to go edge, Ahmad Hassian, really cool story. First Egyptian player ever invited to the combine. First Egyptian player that's going to get drafted. He'd be an interesting one if you want to improve the run defense at the edge position. So yeah, I wouldn't go Damian Martinez here, personally, but linebacker, defensive line, that's probably where I would be looking at.
All right. Well, my executive decision will then be Jack Kaiser. Good player, moves really well. I like the athleticism. I like. Actually, no, we'll get Bo his guys. We'll go Pigus.
His new tight end, his Joker.
Yeah. Yep. We just want to have more out here. So now we got 3 6-round picks coming up. We're on the clock again. Danny Stutzman had a heck. Well, can we just go Stutzman here?
Yeah.
Before we even move on. Okay, cool. So we got a linebacker. We're on the board again. Zeke Biggers, we have not taken another defensive line. He had like a crazy wingspan. He's interesting. Ollie Gordon did not have a good time. Miles Frazier, he's an interesting one. Ricky White for the special teams ability. I might stand on a table for him. Ty Felton might be a good pick here. He had a good combine as well. There's your guy, Efton Chisholm. Eric. Jimmy Horn had a heck of a combine. Maybe there's some overlap there. We love Hunter Waller as well, of course. Anybody here standing out for you? We could go any direction at this point.
Zeke Biggers.
Biggers?
I mean, two-gapping nose tackle that the team do want. Plus, he is one of the best athletes we've seen of defensive linemen that are 320-plus pounds. The list of guys who have tested out better than him athletically, I can count on one hand. Yep. He had such a good one. I mean, Jordan Davis is one of them. Dontari Poe, Mazzie Smith, Travis Jones, they're it. He's wide. I mentioned with Alfred Collins, 85-inch wingspan, 85-inch wingspan, 34-inch arms, 6'4", weighed in at just over 320 pounds. Put up didn't do the bench press, but he jumped vertically 34.5 inches, which is one of the highest we've ever seen at the combine for guys that size. I mean, at this point, you got to bet on athleticism in the 6th round here a little bit. And he had an impressive impressive Shrine Bowl, impressive combine. Word is that he's a smart kid, was praised during the interviews at the Shrine Bowl. Haven't heard how things went at the combine, but Shrine Bowl, sorry. Shrine Bowl is pretty, good idea of that. And then going back to the vertical, second highest vertical ever for a defensive lineman that's over 320 plus pounds. He hit over 19 miles per hour in his 40-yard dash. Yeah, I mean, I'm a big Zeke Biggers fan.
Yeah, I mean, good player. We doubled up on defensive line, 2 different types there. We went offense with the first 3 picks and then defense / special teams the last one. I made an executive decision because we got to wrap it up here. Hunter Waller tested really well. We'll see where his weight winds up. And in the 6th round, chase a tackle, 6th round pick. If he's even just like, you're a 3rd string, 2nd string safety with special teams ability, heck yes. Somebody that Broncos defensive coach, whose name's escaped, Jim Leonard, recruited to Wisconsin as well, played the same position. I mean, hello. So yeah, Jason says Danny Stutzman won't last the 6th round. Who knows? I think you're probably right there, Jason, but he was in this simulation, and guess what? We took him. So overall, I mean, gosh, you might have 3 potential starters here with your first 3 picks and then rotational players after that who offer special team stuff here. So I like this one. I don't think I'm very curious about the D- for Travion Henderson at pick 52 for this big board. But overall, I mean, heck, I like it. I saw Marcus came in and says, let's see what's going on here. He says, show us the picks. Yeah, we're here. I mean, I like this one, Eric. This is a good one.
Yeah, I mean, it's really good. There's not much to, complain about, I don't think anyways. You get, address those needs that the Broncos have, and you address the future needs that the Broncos are going to have. You and I, we've talked about it at length about the future need at defensive line, and how it's a position to better address now than it is when it's actually a need. I'm with, Danny Stutzman. I don't think he's going to be there. I think he'll be gone in the top 120 picks. Hunter Waller, I think he's going to find himself as a linebacker in the NFL, just based off of what's coming out of the combine. One of those guys who bulks up a little bit, probably plays about 225 pounds as a linebacker. But he looked really good during the drills. He showed that maybe there is some potential for him to stick at safety. Yeah, he's a name that I like in the 6th round. After I think it was after the Senior Bowl, there was a lot of talk that he was going to go in, top 150. I think that's kind of settled down a little bit. And yeah, I mean, it's just a all around solid draft at the very least.
Yeah, fills the needs. One thing I wish like Harmon or Darius Alexander or Tyreek Williams would have fallen to 51, 52. One of those defensive linemen. I'm not totally around on Collins yet that high, but that was the one I think we spent the most time debating back and forth, but hard to get too upset there. So we got Michael coming in. Great show today, Nick and Eric on the show. I don't know if we highlighted Eric Flynn as well coming in with the support. Appreciate everyone coming in. All the super chats, the superstars. It's a fun morning. We talked a lot. We'll talk even more about the combine coming up on Wednesday as well. Make sure you guys are following us on Twitter. Eric's at Erick Trickel. I'm at Nick Kendell, MHH. Also follow us at Mile High Huddle. If you haven't done so yet, we're at facebook.com/Mile High Huddle and facebook.com/Mile High Huddle pod. And as that ticker says there, please subscribe, like, and share over on YouTube. We're going to get on out of here. Fun week. Now make sure you guys check out Eric's risers and fallers from Mile High Huddle. His mock draft 4.0. I think just
post combine mock draft, I think is what it was titled.
Yep. So a lot of fun. And Jason showing the love here. $5. So thank you so much. He says, thanks, guys. Thank you, Jason. Thanks to everybody in the chat. Make sure you click a thumbs up on the way out as well. That helps us a heck of a lot. Happy Monday. Everyone have a great week. Don't forget it's spring ahead this upcoming weekend. So good luck to everyone out there if you live in an area that observes daylight savings. And we will see you guys again on Wednesday morning. Choose kindness and compassion. Go Broncos.